pops a message on your screen saying, we've got all your files locked up, and obviously this is incredibly valuable data to people. We can unlock them, but you've got to send us some money. And several people have contacted us, including a London GP, to say that when they've been trying to log onto the system, this kind of message has popped up. Saying your files are encrypted, are locked up, and you'll have to pay a certain amount of money to get them unlocked. It's the most common new tactic of cyber criminals. It's caused huge concern across the world. Hospitals have been hit with it before. And it has to be said, there are reports also coming out that this is a wider scale attack hitting a particular type of software. We're hearing reports from other parts of the world, notably Spain, that other companies may have been affected. We don't know if they're linked, but there is talk of a vulnerability which these criminals are attacking.
So how easy or how difficult is it to combat this, to fight this? And once you've been attacked with this ransomware, whatever you want to call it, how easy is it to defeat it?
Well, this is a very difficult kind of attack. The big advice with this kind of thing is make sure you've got backups held locally, not in the cloud, because this kind of malicious software can get into your stuff held on networked computers. If you've got backups, then you can go back to them. What they're relying on, the criminals, is that you won't be able to get at this data without their say-so, and that leaves you incredibly vulnerable. But they are often exploiting older forms of software that may not be up to date in terms of their security protection. So whatever's happened here, there will obviously be questions about just how robust the NHS's defences are. Yeah,
and where does anyone have any idea where these sort of hackers are based? I mean, this could be anywhere in the world.
Could be anywhere in the world. I mean, it's a huge business, cybercrime. I was talking to the police this week who are trying to train up to combat this kind of thing, and they're saying it is the fastest growing type of offence there is. It accounts by some measures to half of all offence now reported, and it's thought to be underreported. For instance, a lot of companies affected by this kind of thing just pay up and perhaps don't tell anybody about it.
I was going to say, obviously you have to try and fight it, but a lot of people, a company that relies on software and computers and so on will just pay up. I mean, and give the hackers what they want.
Well, yeah, the key thing is, where is your data held? Have you got that secondary backup, which is absolutely key in this sort of case? Otherwise, you're vulnerable. I mean, a lot of companies can say, right, well, we may have lost a bit of data today, but we were backed up at the end of last night, so we're going to ignore this and start again and clean the system of our malicious software. Others will not be so lucky, and they know that they need that data, and we do know that some organisations, police organisations, for instance, in the United States have been hit by this and have ended up paying up.
OK, Rory, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Rory Kathleen-Jones there, our technology correspondent.
Yes, just worth saying actually on that a line coming in saying that Ben mentioned Wales not affected. The Scottish Government also saying it is unaware of any attacks on NHS IT systems in Scotland. So this does seem to be an issue only for the NHS in England. Let's speak now to Robert Schifrin, a former computer hacker who's now the editor of the IT safety website Security Smart. He's on webcam from Bexhill-on-Sea. Thanks for being with us, Robert. How serious could this be?
It's obviously very serious because it sounds like it's hit a huge chunk of the NHS, at least in England. The NHS put out a statement, and it sounds like we think it's ransomware. What they haven't yet done is put out a statement saying we take security very seriously. You can guarantee they will, because whenever people get hit by any sort of cybercrime, they then put out statements saying we take security very seriously. Unfortunately, as this sort of incident demonstrates, however much you take security seriously as an organisation, all it takes is for one person to get what in hindsight was a malicious ransomware-laden email. They read the message, they click on the link thinking it's what it says it is, and actually now what they've done is they've run the program on their computer which encrypts all their files and wants money. It's very common, this sort of occurrence, and it's the holy grail of computer crime in a way, because it allows computer hackers to monetize their events. They now found a way of turning this into money. They don't just cause damage to your computer. They don't just steal your passwords and try to work out what to do with it. It's actual money, because unless you pay them something, you won't get your data back. And in a lot of cases, if you do pay, you still don't get the data back. So it's a double whammy for the victims. It's not uncommon, but it's down to human error. It's not down to IT systems not taking security seriously.
So you said that this will have come in via an email to somebody.
Generally what happens is you'll receive an email or some sort of malware on your computer. You click on the link thinking it's a link to some attachment or so on, excuse me. And actually what happens is it's an email that's going to run a system on your computer that will encrypt all your files, because by clicking on this link, you've now given it permission to encrypt all your files. It then pops up a message saying you've lost all your data, send us some money and we'll give you the password. Alternatively, as Rory was saying, all you simply have to do is restore from your backups. If you're a single person or a 5-man company and you've got to restore from your backups, assuming they're up to date, then that can take half an hour and you're fine. If you're something the size of the NHS, and this malware has not only encrypted one person's information, it's then tried to spread itself through the network to all your colleagues and encrypted their information as well. And you've got thousands of computers. And of course, you can't put them back online until you're 100% sure that they're safe and everyone's data is intact. Then you can be down for days. And, we're now reading reports of GPs resorting to pen and paper. It's hugely serious. This can cost lives. It's that serious, is computer crime.
You mentioned it starts possibly just with one person. We've now seen, though, that it appears to have spread quite widely geographically. How easy is it, once one person has clicked and accepted that malware, for it to move through the system? How does that work?
What happens is, if you're a computer user, you've probably got your email system and you've got your address book and you've got your contacts list. And if you wanted to send an email to all your contacts, then all you have to do is fire up your email program and it will do that for you automatically. What this virus program does, what this ransomware does, is exactly the same thing. Once it's on your computer, it fires up your email, it sends a copy of itself to all your contacts. They click on the link, they're now infected, their files get encrypted, and it then sends itself to all of those contacts as well. So it does spread very, very rapidly. And the more we link our computers together, the more we say, let's link all our computers on networks, let's all back up to the cloud, the more we're at risk. And again, as Rory was saying, if you've got cloud-based backup on your home computer or your business computer with things like OneDrive and Dropbox and so on, you can get to your Dropbox and your OneDrive with one click. So can the malware. So if you think you've got a backup, actually you haven't, because as soon as you're infected and as soon as the malware has finished encrypting the data on your computer's hard disk, it will then go and encrypt what you think are your backups in your Dropbox or your OneDrive, and you've lost those as well. So you do need to do something about that. And as Rory said, keep it locally, keep it off-site. By all means, buy an external USB drive or one of these USB sticks, back up to there, stick it in your pocket, not connected to the computer. And then if you get hit, whether you're the size of the NHS or you're the size of a small company, restore from your backups and you're safe.
That's very good advice for people listening at home. Thank you. When we talk about hackers who might have done this, what level of sophistication, what level of complexity is an attack like this?
You need to be quite savvy to know what you're doing. Unfortunately, what happens is we hear about bugs being discovered in software all the time. There was a very serious one discovered and patched by Microsoft to do with Windows only this week. And what happens is they'll generally put out a security patch for Windows or whichever operating system or whichever program, and they'll put out a statement saying the reason we've done this patch is because security researchers have discovered that if they manage to do X, it will infect your computer. And of course, the hackers all over the world then read this document and say, oh, in that case, all I've got to do is go and do X on a computer where somebody hasn't installed the updates yet, and I can get into their system. And that happens again all too frequently, which is why when people like myself say, always make sure you always install all the updates for your computer and all your programs, whenever anybody says, if you run your website on WordPress and there's been some WordPress updates and people are thinking, should I install it or not? This is why you should, because as soon as the news of this patch comes out, people are trying to exploit it. And they're simply trying at random, looking for sites that haven't had this software installed and haven't had the updates installed. And if they happen to come across yours, your website will be targeted. OK, Robert, thank you very much. Really interesting to get your insight into all of that. Robert Schifrin from IT safety website Security Smart. Right, I'm going to talk to Rory Cellan-Jones again, our technology correspondent. Let me just tell you before I talk to Rory
that we're hearing from the National Cybersecurity Centre. They have tweeted, "We're aware of a cyber incident and we're working with NHS Digital and the National Crime Agency to investigate." And the National Cybersecurity Centre is part of the GCHQ Spy Centre at Cheltenham. So just an indication of how seriously this is being taken. And the Reuters news agency are also telling us that British hospital workers in the NHS in England were warned on Friday by IT departments that they were at threat from ransomware. Rory, what's your latest information on this cyber attack?
We've got a lot more information all of a sudden from NHS Digital, basically confirming, I think, what we've been saying. It says a number of NHS organisations have reported that they have been affected by a ransomware attack. That's exactly what we're talking about. The investigation is at an early stage, but we believe the malware variant is WannaCry. Now, I presume that's probably quite a well-known piece of malicious software that's out there. And here's the key thing. I think what I was saying earlier about it being a wider scale attack than just the NHS. At this stage, we do not have any evidence that patient data has been accessed. The attack was not specifically targeted at the NHS and is affecting organisations from across a range of sectors. So that seems to indicate that it is this particular piece of malicious software, WannaCry, that locks up your files, demands a ransom from it, ransomware. Perhaps it's targeting a particular vulnerability in a particular kind of software that the NHS in England has. Here's the mystery, that it's affecting the NHS in England but not in Scotland or Wales. That would perhaps suggest that they've got different kind of operating system and network software than elsewhere in the NHS, and that is particularly vulnerable. We need to know a lot more about that.
Yeah, we're just also hearing via Reuters that the NHS England saying 16 NHS organisations have been affected, or saying they've been affected by this cyber attack. No evidence at the moment that patient data has been accessed, which is obviously important. But you're saying that it may not just be an attack on the NHS, it might be other organisations as well. But we haven't had reports from other companies and so on.
We did have one report, which I won't name the company at the moment, but that a major telecoms company in Spain had been affected. We're still chasing that up. But what sometimes happens with this is kind of unleashed in a slightly random way against a whole range of targets. It's a kind of a fishing expedition. It's like a wave of spam, and certain organisations turn out to be more vulnerable than others, particularly. Obviously, it depends on usually somebody clicking on what looks like an innocuous email and turns out to contain this. And then, as we heard from Robert Schifrin a moment ago, it spreads to everybody's contacts within that organisation.
When you talk about some organisations being more vulnerable, I mean, is that, you know, say you're a big bank with a lot of financial resources, can you spend more then on IT defence, if you like, than an organisation like the NHS, which is maybe a bit strapped for cash?
Well, you might have more up-to-date software systems. You might have more ring fencing of particular systems. I mean, the NHS is saying that no patient data has been accessed. Perhaps it's one of the NHS systems and one which doesn't actually affect patient data that has been accessed here. We don't know that.
Rory, for the moment, thank you very much again. Rory Catherine-Jones, our technology correspondent.
We're going to stay with this because we can speak now to Bill Goodwin from Computer Weekly magazine. He joins us via Skype from his office in London. Bill, thanks for being with us. The suggestion now seems to be that this is affecting the NHS, but maybe a wider attack.
Yeah, it sounds very much as though it was not particularly targeted at the NHS. It could have been a general email that went out to all sorts of organisations. But it could be that the NHS, for whatever reason, because of whatever type of software they're using, are particularly vulnerable to this piece of malware. The problem with the NHS is that it's not awash with money, and they do employ good cybersecurity people, but they're struggling to keep their heads above water and to deal with day-to-day issues. So when a big attack like this comes along, it really puts the cybersecurity operations under strain. People out there will be frantic trying to work out how to deal with this. It seems that the real damage is not so much patient data, but the fact that hospitals have had to, perhaps as a precaution, turn off their IT systems to prevent the infection spreading. So they're resorting to pen and paper. They're asking patients not to turn up to, in some cases, not to turn up to accident and emergency wards. So the knock-on effects seem to be very serious.
You said that there will be some pretty frantic people trying to get to grips with this. What will be the priorities for the computer experts who've been drafted to take a look at what's happening?
I think priority number one will be to stop the malware spreading, which is why organisations have turned off their computer systems. I think number two will be to try and remove the malware. There are antivirus companies that can actually obtain the decryption signatures for this sort of malware. People like well-known antivirus companies that actually offer a service to do that. So they'll be bringing in the experts to try and remove this malicious software from their computer systems. I suppose in extremis, some organisations might actually be tempted to pay the ransom. That has happened. That has happened before, but I think they'll be bringing in the experts first to try and remove this software and to try and reclaim their data.
As you say, that the priority, of course, is to stop the impact of this. But at some point, someone has to ask as well, how do we stop the people who are doing this? How easy is it when you get this kind of attack to trace it back to anybody?
It can actually be quite difficult because hackers are very sophisticated at masking their tracks. So they'll go through multiple servers in multiple countries. It's very, very difficult if they know what they're doing to trace these attacks back. However, there are some very clever and talented people at GCHQ and the National Security Centres who will be working on this right now and will be trying to trace it back. It may originate from a different country, and then you've got problems with jurisdictional issues. So how do you actually track them down and prosecute them? It's very, very difficult. The real answer is to prevent it happening in the first place. A lot of it is training of staff to make sure that you don't click on an email from a person that you don't know or that contains a suspicious-looking attachment that could have malware code embedded in it. It's very, very easy to trick people, though. For example, it's called spear phishing. You send an email, you can mask the true identity of the email so it appears to come from your boss. It says, urgent, please open this attachment and deal with this immediately. So you do, but actually it contains a malware program. It's very, very easy. So a lot of it begins with user training and user awareness and making sure people do not fall for those sorts of tricks.
A good lesson for all of us. Bill Goodwin from Computer Weekly magazine, thanks very much.
Just to bring you up to date with what NHS Digital are telling us, that's the computer arm of the National Health Service in England. They're saying 16 NHS organisations have so far reported that their IT systems have been affected by this cyber attack. They're saying the investigations are at an early stage, but we believe the malware variant they've been hit with is called WannaCry, and that is what is causing all the problems in NHS hospitals and also GP surgeries in lots of parts of England. Scotland, Wales, it seems not affected at the moment. Let's talk now to Dr. Tarek Seda, who's an A&E doctor at King's Mill Hospital in the Midlands. Thank you very much for being with us. How's it affected you?
Yes, it's affected actually me in terms of managing my patients here in the A&E department. I had a lady today who had a severe back pain, which we call possibility of coda equina, which potentially could paralyze her down below her leg. And we had to divert her to other hospital, Queen's Medical Center, for further management. It has also affected us in terms of that we had to go back to paper-based and paperwork in terms of X-rays and blood tests and documentation on the patient notes. It's getting a bit difficult for us because we've got a lot of patients here, and it takes an awful lot of time for us to process the information on a paper system.
What do you think of people who would launch a cyber attack like this on hospitals and GP surgeries?
I think they are a bunch of, what would I say, cowards sitting behind the screen trying to disturb, people's lives and risking it for cheap gains in terms of money. And I hate to say that, unfortunately, although we have I think we probably have, no, not probably, I can confirm we have the best health system in the world. And I'm proud to be part of it. And for some idiots to try to mess us about, I'm sure the consequences for them will be very grave once they find out who has been behind it.
We've just got a statement in from the Patients Association. They're just effectively saying today's attack might be the biggest, but it isn't the first, probably won't be the last, and really saying that we should look now for more spending on the cost to defend the National Health Service in terms of IT technology to defend against cyber attacks like this. And the Patients Association saying now is not the time to be squeamish about the cost of keeping our NHS secure. Would you agree with those sentiments that, it does maybe require some more spending on IT defence in the NHS?
Yes, sir. I have a lot of IT background. I used to fix computers, build computers and stuff like that, besides being a doctor. And I can tell you honestly that, the IT system here is very good. It's brilliant. People are working behind it are very, very intelligent. The problem is we need more sophisticated system, faster, more secure. To be honest, I don't want Bill Gates to hear this conversation and get upset with me if I recommend to have Apple systems on our NHS system. But I think I don't know, but probably they are maybe a bit more secure. But the answer to your question is yes, we need more money to be spent on the IT system, and today is the biggest example for us.
All right, well, thank you very much for being with us, and interesting to get your perspective on this cyber attack. Dr. Tariq Sader there, an A&E doctor in the Midlands. Thank you.
There's more information coming in all the time. Just a statement being released by NHS providers. They represent NHS acute, ambulance, community and mental health services in the NHS. They're saying the scale and scope of what looks to be an extensive malware attack on the NHS is not yet clear. But they make the point if this is a malware attack, this is a growing problem across all industries. Given the potential impact, NHS trusts take this type of attack very seriously. And NHS providers perhaps trying to reassure by saying, of course, the NHS has detailed and well-rehearsed contingency plans in place to deal with incidents of this type. These plans have worked effectively when they've been triggered on an individual trust basis in the past. And trusts will, of course, rally round to support each other to cope with disruption. However, and this is important, it is likely that some services will be affected, at least in the short term. But they would like to reassure patients that they're doing all they can to minimise the impact on patients and to get their services back to normal as quickly as possible. And just one other statement, this giving a sense that not everybody is affected. I was just looking at a statement, I can't now find it, of course, from Oxfordshire, which was saying that they so far were clear of it. They have taken precautions. They've been advised oh yes, here we are. Oxford Hospital Trust, Oxford University Hospitals. We've been notified about the attacks. So far, they say, our strong security measures are holding solid. But they, like many other surgeries and hospitals, will be monitoring the situation and getting staff, as they say, to be vigilant. So this situation gradually unfolding. One place that we know has been affected is Liverpool. On the line is Dr. Chris Mimner, who's a GP at Wingate Medical Centre in Liverpool. Thanks very much for being with us. Perhaps you could give us a sense of what happened at your surgery.
Oh, it's fairly straightforward. 2 o'clock this afternoon, our clinical system lost contact with the server. Our system is one of the most popular in the UK. Over 50% of general practice in England runs on it, and the server's centrally held and supported and protected. And the loss of access to the server was a move put in place by our local informatics service to prevent infection reaching into our health community.
And what has the impact been on you when you've had to turn everything off?
Well, that's the problem, really. We operate almost exclusively on computers, very little paper in the building, indeed, usually coming in from other places. And so our entire patient record is accessed through the computer, blood results, history, medicines. Most of our prescribing is done electronically. We don't use prescriptions unless the patient particularly chooses to want a piece of green paper. The rest of the time it's sent directly to pharmacies, and of course all that is not able to be accessed when we lose the clinical system.
So what are you saying to patients who are coming in for their appointments this afternoon?
Our message, the model we operate, fortunately, we don't book weeks in advance. We're not a surgery where you have to struggle to get an appointment and wait weeks to get it. We deal with everybody on the telephone. So when people ring up, we solve a third of the problems on the phone. We bring in and see and treat in a 4-hour target. The other third we do something different and more appropriate with. So that could be a long-term appointment or whatever. Anyhow, bottom line is there's not an awful lot of people coming in, booked in to come in this afternoon. And those patients are understanding if they know that they've got a problem which can wait till next week, when hopefully all this will have died down, then we can deal with them then. If they do need to be seen and sorted, we're seeing and sorting them now. And we're doing that on the basis of good old-fashioned clinical practice. Please tell me what's up with you. Have you had this before? What can we do? And we're working through in proper general practice style to try and reach the best outcomes for patients on a case-by-case basis. But the important thing here is that no data has been lost or affected, so everybody's patient histories and prescribing medications are still as safe as they were this morning.
OK, Dr. Chris Mimner, really kind of you to take time out to tell us what's happening where you are. We wish you well as you try and rally round to deal with this. Dr. Chris Mimner, who's a GP at Wingate Medical Centre in Liverpool.
Just to recap, if you're joining us, a cyber attack on NHS England hospitals and GP surgeries. At least 16 hospitals we're hearing at the last count affected, and A&E patients being told, unless it really is an emergency, not to go to A&E. This is it just in from Colchester General Hospital's Facebook page, and saying the trust has experienced a major IT problem believed to be caused by the cyber attack. The trust acted to protect its IT systems by shutting them down. We're postponing all non-urgent activity for today and asking people not to come to A&E. People should use A&E only for critical or life-threatening situations requiring medical attention, such as loss of consciousness, heavy blood loss, suspected broken bones, etc. Avoid visiting A&E unless absolutely necessary. So that's just one example of the warnings that are being put out by hospitals and trusts up and down the country. But this is England at the moment. We're hearing NHS England affected, not hospitals in Wales or Scotland. Let's go to our correspondent Helena Lee, who's at St Bart's Hospital in central London. And Bart's one of the many that have been really hit hard by this, Helena.
That's right, Ben. One of the 16 hospitals which have been hit by what is emerging to be a very serious situation across the country. Now, we asked somebody from the hospital if they could come out and speak to us. Clearly, they've got more important things to do at the moment, but they have given us a statement saying that there has been IT disruption, major IT disruption, and here at the hospital they have now put in a major incident plan to deal with the situation. They have cancelled here at Bart's routine appointments, and they've apologised to those patients who had appointments here at the hospital, and they also say that ambulances have been diverted. There isn't an A&E department here at Bart's, but at other neighbouring hospitals ambulances have been diverted as well. Now the issue is in this hospital and at the other hospitals that have been affected is that we understand that they have have had to shut down these IT systems. When a patient comes into a hospital, they are put through the system electronically. Doctors and consultants can see the records of their previous appointments, their blood tests, their x-rays. Most of the hospitals won't have that information, and they will